Making sense common again. It's your host, David Knight.
I'm David Knight. It's November the 3rd, 2017, Friday, and tomorrow is the big day they've been touting. Major ad taken out in the New York Times by a communist organization promoting November the 4th as a day of pushing back. You know, it may have already started. The area where I used to live, just outside of Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, they had a small explosion yesterday. We're going to take a look at that and ask if that was the start of the Antifa protests that are coming up. We also got the Democrats and CNN absolutely shocked by Donna Brazil's revelations in her book. And she calls the book Hacked. No, they're still lying to you if they're telling you that the DNC emails were hacked. They're not hacked. We've had William Binney, who is a former global technical head of the NSA, say that there's absolutely no way, if you look at the timestamps on the data as it was transferred on files that were later released a month or so later, he said, this looks like this was an internal individual who did this. You could not transfer it over the internet that quickly, that quantity of information. He doesn't believe it at all. And of course, we didn't for many other reasons as well. We had testimony from Julian Assange. We had testimony from a former U.S. ambassador who worked with WikiLeaks saying, I went to the U.S., I was handed the information by an individual who was a whistleblower. And we've got more information that has now come out from a whistleblower inside the DNC, upset about their prejudice against, let's see, how'd they put this? Straight white males who are cisgender. And if you don't know what that is, we'll explain that to you. But it defines the mentality of the Democrat Party. And it's absolutely ironic what is said in the memo that was leaked by a disgruntled DNC employee. It's still going on there. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the tax plan that has been released. And Twitter removed President Trump yesterday for 11 minutes. At first I said, well, we don't know what was happening. And then they said, oh, it looks like somebody, a human, inadvertently removed him. And then as they did their investigation, they said, well, it looks like an employee who was on his last day as his way out the door. I don't know if they fired him because they're probably telling you the truth. I don't know that Twitter would fire anybody for deleting the president's account. When you look at what they did to manipulate the information about the DNC leaks, they were complicit in doing the cover-up with that. That's where we got all of the Russian narrative, the lies about it being hacked, so that you wouldn't look at the content of what came out. And that's where this all began. And of course, Twitter was very much involved in shutting down any discussion as to what was leaked. They admit now that they shut down half of the Twitter hashtags that were talking about DNC leaks, hashtag DNC leaks. They shut down half of those and kept them from going out. So they took out half of the discussion about DNC leaks from Twitter. So that's, I don't know, you know, it seems to me there's so many different things that are happening that are criminal, from Uranium One, from the cover-up by the FBI, by Robert Mueller, who was director at the FBI, and now he's running the investigation, perhaps destroying evidence. Maybe that's why he was put in. Rod Rosenstein was there at the same time. Maybe that's why Mueller was selected. He always seems to be the guy that is their go-to guy for anything like this, and he had a very long tenure at the FBI. We had an entire police surveillance state put in under the tenure of Robert Mueller. He was appointed by the establishment 1 week before 9/11, and he has been at the heart of all these criminal investigations. As I said earlier in the week, it's kind of like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon in Hollywood. Well, it's actually just 1 degree of Robert Mueller. But when we look at all these different crimes and all the different ways that they're covering it up, is there something about maybe an in-kind contribution to Hillary Clinton that Twitter contributed? Maybe we ought to take a look at that. I guess we'll never get that far down if we can't even do anything about the obvious criminals at the top who are always protected. I'm David Knight. Stay with us. I'll be right back. It's Friday, November 3rd, 2017. Much awaited November 4th movement by Antifa, trumpeted in the New York Times as a very expensive ad taken out by some communists who don't seem to like capitalism. We may have one of the first attacks happen yesterday in USC Chapel Hill. We'll take a look at that. But I want to start with Twitter. taking down President Trump's account yesterday. Now, this is something that Twitter now says was done by a rogue employee. At first, they said, well, we don't know what happened. It was down for a full 11 minutes. And as one of the articles says, that's an eternity on Twitter, because people are just constantly looking at this thing and watching it. And it's like, where is he? Where is he? And, and I think it's interesting, the reaction of the Twitterverse of social media, when you see where these people are really coming from. You see how they love censorship. They don't want to explain what they're doing. And we have seen this so many times. I've mentioned before, when we went to the protests of Planned Parenthood here, we had signs that were talking about black genocide. And they don't come, the Marxists who came there to shut down what we had to say. I wasn't there. My wife was there. Other people from Infowars were there. Alex Jones was there. They came to shut down what we were saying at the Planned Parenthood clinic. I guess you could call it a clinic. Butcher shop, maybe. They didn't have signs of their own. These Marxists who showed up, and they were all Marxists, they showed up with black squares, big black posters, nothing at all on it, to redact what we were saying about black genocide. So that's what they do. And that's what we see on Twitter, the response that we see on Twitter. And we're going to read you some of the responses. Of course, our guest today in studio is going to be Roger Stone, and I'm sure he's going to have something to say about this. This comes less than a week after they banned him for life because he pushed back on some CNN reporters and what they were saying about the Manafort indictment. And of course, to just remind you, Roger Stone has had multiple death threats put against him, so has the president. Roger Stone said they've made death threats against me, against my wife, against my pet, and nobody has taken these people down. But they took down President Trump for 11 minutes yesterday, and Twitter celebrated. Also, our guest is going to be Dr. Bonner Cohen is also going to be one of our guests, and he's going to talk about some more good news at EPA. Again, the best pick, I believe, that President Trump has made in his cabinet, Scott Pruitt. And we're also going to give you an idea of what's going on with the tax plan, what has been released by the House. Of course, it has to be approved by the Senate. And the Democrats and CNN are absolutely, totally shocked by Donna Brazil's new book. They find it a revelation that, yes, Hillary Clinton really did rig the primaries against Bernie Sanders. Do you find that revealing? I'll tell you what is revealing when we get to that. It's not what Donna Brazil says, but I'll tease it here for you. Here's a spoiler alert. It's the fact that Donna Brazil is saying something. That is the thing that is most important about all of this. The fact that the Democrat establishment has turned on Hillary Clinton, and with a vengeance. We're going to talk about that, celebrate that a little bit. It's a little bit kind of fun to watch. If we can't send her to prison, and I guess absolutely nothing that Hillary Clinton could ever do would warrant her going to prison, no matter how red-handed she is caught. But if we can't send her to prison, at least going down into obscurity. But let's take a look at what happened with Twitter. First, they came out and said an employee inadvertently deactivated Trump's account. We're going to track this down. Later on, they said, well, it was a guy who was on his way out, or a woman, an employee who was leaving, and decided that they would do this as a parting shot. And here's a response from Twitter. One person says, Donald Trump's Twitter was deleted! ! Finally, someone did the right thing. Sadly, it wasn't our government who did it. See, they're embracing, they're celebrating the authoritarian ideas of censorship. That's what these people are about. This is the intolerance of the left. Another one, whoever disabled Donald Trump's Twitter account shouldn't be sacked. They should be promoted. Another one, I'm saving this picture of Trump's Twitter account as a reminder that anything can happen with anyone, no matter how big you are. And it shows real Donald Trump does not exist. And that was what everybody was seeing on Twitter for about 11 minutes. Donald Trump's Twitter needs to be deactivated for lifetime. Twitter will be a happier place. Yes, they do not want to be disturbed by anybody who has a point of view different from theirs. And they want the government to do it for them as well. That's these socialist Marxists. That's what the communists have always done. You don't have a free press. You don't have freedom of expression. As a matter of fact, you don't have any freedoms at all under Marxism. It was Lenin who said, yes, liberty is a very precious thing. That's why it must be rationed by him. Someone out there is about to put deleted Donald Trump's Twitter account on their resume. Yes, that's something you should be proud of. Not all heroes wear capes, they say. And then The Independent says the internet has nominated the Twitter employee who shut down Trump's account for a Nobel Peace Prize. They say, please get the departing Twitter employee who deactivated Donald Trump's account for their last day a medal, a knighthood, a magnum of champagne, and a small tropical island. I heard the BBC, their commentator, celebrating it today. I just wish I knew who this person was. I want to give him a high five. To the hero who shut down Doddard's Twitter account today, we salute you for doing what we all wanted to do. Yes, that's what they all wanted to do. That's what they all want. And another one, you say human error, I say due for a promotion, and I say so too, because this is in line with what Twitter wants to do. It's what we have seen in the last couple of days. As I pointed out earlier, the whole thing about Donna Brazile, the title of her book that is coming out, that she's now promoting, is called Hacked. Well, that's a lie. They were not hacked. As I said at the top of the hour, William Binney, the former global technical head of the NSA, and he ought to know, said it wasn't possible, if you look at the timestamps and the quantity of data, it wasn't possible to have grabbed that over the internet. We have seen revelations coming out of WikiLeaks showing the manuals that they have within the CIA as to how they can make anything that they do like it's coming from another country. But it didn't even go over the internet. We had Julian Assange, who has not lied to you like CNN and Hillary Clinton and the DNC and the mainstream media. Julian Assange said it was not a state actor. In other words, it was somebody from the inside. A former British ambassador said, I went to the U.S., I was handed this stuff by a disgruntled DNC individual. And the whole narrative about the Russian hack, and that's the title of Donna Brazile's book, Hacked. But the reality is that what was hacked was the DNC, and it was hacked from the inside by Hillary Clinton, and it was an insider who exposed it. But Twitter participated in this cover-up. Hillary Clinton came out with a narrative. It was the Russians who did it. It was a red herring, as I said, a smelly fish that she drug across the track as a diversion so that the hounds would be off of the track, so that nobody would look at the emails. And Twitter participated in that as well. They admitted that they buried the Podesta email hashtag. They admitted that they buried the hashtag that was talking about DNC leak, hashtag DNC leak. They said that they took out 48% of the tweets about hashtag DNC leak. So yes, that last person was right. This individual is due for a promotion at Twitter. This individual did what Twitter has been doing with algorithms, what Twitter did to Roger Stone. And Roger Stone says he's going to sue them, he's going to own them. Well, I hope if he owns them, he'll find a way to make money, because they don't seem to know how to make money. They don't seem to appreciate Twitter as a free speech campaign. And when we come back, we're going to play a clip for you of Ted Cruz. But I just want to remind you that as they make a big deal out of the fact that Facebook had 100,000 impressions on ads that they did, they also pointed out that that was 0.004%. In other words, 0.011% of what was happening there. And at the time that what Twitter is doing, they're taking 57,000 users, 426,000 unique tweets, and they're throwing them away algorithmically because they don't want you to hear. They don't want you to see what was in that information. That is what Twitter is about. And that, by the way, is why these social media accounts need to be treated as de facto monopolies that they are. Stay with us. We'll be right back. I'm David Knight. Welcome back. I'm David Knight, and we're going to take a look at what Ted Cruz said about the censorship of Twitter. As I pointed out before, as the emails were breaking from Podesta, and before that, the DNC leak, they were algorithmically shutting down half of the tweets about the DNC leak. And of course, Hillary and the others were pushing everything they could about Russia so that you wouldn't look at the content of those leaks. And Twitter was shutting down people who were tweeting about it, who were trying to show the content of the leaks. They were helping her in that effort. Maybe we should file a complaint with the FEC, Federal Elections Commission, and say, what about this in-kind contribution from Twitter? Is that legal for them to do that? Is that legal for them to suspend free speech? And of course, as we look at all of this, understand, as I pointed out yesterday, there is a case, one of these gay wedding bakery cases that has gone to the Supreme Court. They said it has generated the most briefs to the court on both sides of the issue, the most briefs. In other words, it's been the most controversial issue that they've had for several years. And that includes things like it's at the level that they've seen in the past for things like abortion and other issues. So it is in the top 3 in terms of the number of amicus briefs that have been sent to the court. It's a very controversial issue. It's a very difficult issue for most people to get their head around. I think it's very clear. And I think that if they're going to say that a small business, which does not have a monopoly, I mean, in my opinion, what we're seeing here is a baiting that was going on. These people were doing this as a baiting situation. They were not put out by the fact that they couldn't get a baker to participate in their wedding ceremony. And that's the point that they're making. When you go to bakers, when you go to photographers, they're not simply selling you a product that you take away. They're participating in the ceremony. And they say that that offends their religious beliefs. And so that's the conflict. You know, religious beliefs that are protected in the First Amendment versus the idea that when you set up a business, you have to not discriminate against anybody. And it's a different thing if you're selling a product versus whether you are going to participate in a ceremony. So that's the issue there. Nevertheless, if you're going to say, and it's interesting to me that the people on the left who are saying that we have to force the bakers to serve anybody to go to a wedding, the photographers to go to a wedding. Those people are also saying and celebrating, as we saw with the takedown of President Trump's Twitter account, they celebrate the censorship of these de facto monopolies like YouTube, like Twitter, like Facebook. They celebrate that. And you don't have another place to go besides those 3. They're like the big 3, as Gerald Celente said. It's like ABC, CBS, NBC used to be. They're trying to reestablish that kind of, it's not a monopoly, but we want to a triopoly. That's what they had essentially in the past, all politically on the same page. And by doing that, shutting down any information that is contrary to their political beliefs. That's the way they ran the mainstream networks, the way they still run them. And we were able to get around that control by using the internet. So then they have these 3 big social media accounts where they can basically, what they're trying to do is to set up a system where you cannot share information about what you have read, which allows us to get around their gridlock. So they say that a baker must do this because the individuals don't have another choice. That's absolutely not true, but it is true in the case of these social media individuals. Before we get to Ted Cruz's clip here, I just want to remind you of some of the sales that we have at InfoWarsStore.com. We've added a couple new ones yesterday. We had Biome Defense Probiotics, 25% off. And of course, that has probiotic cultures from 23 different strains. They're known to support digestion and intestinal function. Very important. Especially if you're taking antibiotics. It's going to cut down, it's going to kill your good probiotic gut bacteria. You need to restore that. That is now 25% off. Biome Defense. Also, DNA Force, 25% off. And we have some of the other items that have been on sale for a while. DNA Force is, like I said, 25% off. But we also have Emmerich's Essential Packs, 50% off. Winter Sun, 50% off. Survival Shield X2 and BioTrue Selenium, 40% off. Brain Force is 40% off. So take a look at the sales that we have at InfoWarsStore.com. Let's take a look at what Ted Cruz had to say about censorship. And then we're going to get into Donna Brazil and her amazing revelation. Absolutely shocking, said Wolf Blitzer. But let's hear what Ted Cruz has to say about censorship first.
That same professor ran a second study and found the vast majority of news outlets that were represented in Google searches were left-leaning. It's not just Google. In 2016, it was revealed that Facebook was, quote, curating the list of trending news stories on their website. According to reports, Facebook workers were artificially spiking conservative stories, including stories about former IRS official Lois Lerner, former Navy SEAL Chris Kyle, and positive stories about conservative politicians. The reports also revealed that stories by conservative outlets like the Washington Examiner or Newsmax that were popular enough to be picked up by Facebook's trending stories algorithm were nonetheless excluded until the New York Times and CNN began covering the same stories. Just last month, Twitter barred Representative Marsha Blackburn from advertising her campaign launch video because it deemed a line about her efforts to investigate Planned Parenthood to be inflammatory. The Susan B. Anthony list recently had a video advertisement against a political candidate blocked on Twitter because it referred to partial birth abortion as being akin to infanticide. Now, those are all political positions that people can take in our democratic society. But it is disconcerting if those political positions become a lens through which the American consumers consume news. So I want to ask each of you, do you consider your sites, Mr. Edgett and Mr. Stretch, to be neutral public fora?
You said that without laughing.
Senator, we think of Facebook as a platform for all ideas, and we have boundaries in the sense that we don't permit certain categories of content, such as hate speech, but within those guidelines, we do not in any way discriminate on the basis of viewpoint or ideology.
So I'm just trying to understand, is that a yes or no, whether you consider yourself to be a neutral public forum?
We don't think of it in the terms of neutral, because what we're trying to do actually is provide each user a personalized news feed that will be the content that's most interesting to that user. But we do think of ourselves as, again, within the boundaries that I described, open to all ideas without regard to viewpoint or ideology.
Yeah, and of course, Twitter is neutral. That's why when they had about 500,000 people talking about the DNC leaks, they algorithmically excluded half of those, 500,000. That's neutral, isn't it? Stay with us. We'll be right back. We're going to tell you what's going on. There's still leaks from disgruntled DNC employees from the inside. We'll give you the latest scoop on that. I'm David Knight. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Friday, November 3rd, 2017. I'm David Knight, and we're going to take a look at Donna Brazile, this amazing revelation. We are shocked, says CNN. We're shocked that they rigged the primaries against Bernie. Who knew? Who knew that this could happen? And as a matter of fact, but before we get to that, let's take a look at the latest leak, because her book says, the title of her book is Hacked. And she continues to push this narrative that it was the Russians who hacked these emails. As I've said multiple times, it was an effort to distract you from reading what was in the emails, even as Twitter was shutting down half of the tweets that were talking about it. They did not want you to see what was going on. Twitter did not want you to see what was going on. What you really ought to call her book is What Really Happened. But she's not telling us what really happened. Let me give you an example of this, because we just had in the last day or so, I think it came out yesterday, another leak from somebody inside the DNC who is upset about what's going on. And this is what leaked out. It is a memo from their IT manager. And it says this. It says, as you may have heard, we are rebuilding the technology team into a robust, well-oiled machine that can tackle all elections from presidential down to dog catcher and school board. What's more important is that we be focused on hiring and managing and maintaining a staff of diverse voices and life experiences. Does that say something to you? Do you understand that they would like to participate? They can tackle all elections from the president down to dog catcher. But even more important than that is that IT have a diverse staff. That's the most important thing, because that reflects the Democrat priorities. They're all about identity politics. And that's why they continue to lose. That's why they lost more than 1,000 seats, that and their socialism. That's why they lost more than 1,000 seats under Obama. And they're not going to get them back. That's the good news. But let me tell you, what would be funny if it wasn't something that was being adopted by millennials. And this, of course, is an email that was revealed by the Daily Wire. And they also posted a comment from an anonymous DNC staffer. So this is coming out of the DNC. These are people who are leaking this information, just as they leaked the information about how the DNC had rigged the primaries against Bernie Sanders. It was a leak. It was not a Russian hack. Let's keep repeating that. It was a leak. Clearly the DNC, says the anonymous DNC staffer, clearly the DNC is doubling down on a failed strategy that has already alienated staffers and voters alike. Yes, that's what really happened. That's what really happened. It's your identity politics. It's killing you. And we're so happy to see it. Because if you weren't killing yourself with identity politics, you'd be killing us with socialism and communism. This DNC staffer said, we want to be judged based on the quality of our work, not on identity politics. Well, maybe you should be working for a different political organization, because that's not what the Democrats are about. They're not about merit. They're about identity politics. They said, how can we trust the leadership of the DNC if they don't even trust us? Well, we don't trust the leadership of the DNC. They would go all the way around the world to lie to us before they would admit the obvious truth. They're pathological liars. And when you look at this, what she goes on to say is, she said, I would personally prefer that you not forward any job notices to cisgender straight white males, since they're already in the majority. To not put this out to straight white males who are cisgender. Now, in case you don't know what cisgender is, Breitbart breaks it down for you. Cisgender is a term that refers to normal people. So they do not want any normal people, in addition to not wanting any white straight males. They don't want anybody who is normal. For example, you have cisgender. Think of it as the antithesis that they have invented to be the antithesis of transgender. So you have transgender that we celebrate, and then cisgender that we spit upon. A cisgender person, as these progressive socialist cultural Marxists say, is somebody like a man who's living as a woman. Now, if you had a woman who is living as a woman, she's cisgender. We don't want any cisgenders. That's CIS, not SIS. They want people, they want to focus on diversity. And they want to focus on transgenderism. And so they're going to wind up giving people like the Awan brothers that the former DNC chair, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, had. Because they're going to vet you for your identity. They're going to vet you for your diversity, but they're not going to vet you for your capability. Because, one of these Awan brothers had been working at McDonald's before he started getting six-figure salaries from the DNC. More money than most of the high staff assistants do in Congress. They're also not going to vet you for any kind of criminal background either, are they? You can see that. That's not important. I mean, come on, let's not be divisive. Let's not look at people's criminal background. Let's not look at their terrorist links. Let's not look at their competence. Let's just hire people from McDonald's, bring them in as IT managers, pay them six-figure salaries, and watch them steal information and sell it to foreign services. Because, they're gonna be our crooks. We're gonna own them. They're our diversity buddies. So what about her book? As Fox News reports, Donna Brazile says, I found proof the DNC rigged the nomination for Hillary Clinton. Wow, really? So, she said, I'd promised Bernie when I took the helm of the DNC after the convention that I would get to the bottom of whether Hillary Clinton's team had rigged the nomination process, as a cache of emails stolen by Russian hackers and posted them online had suggested. Again, her book is called Hacked. She's still selling the lie that this was the Russian hackers, and she now seems to want to distance herself from Hillary Clinton. That is the most important revelation. The fact is that this woman, Donna Brazile, as we learned from some of the DNC leaks, we learned that while she was at CNN, she was passing questions to Hillary about debates that were coming up or forums that were coming up. I forget whether it was a debate or a forum, but she was passing information on to Hillary Clinton, feeding her that stuff before she was DNC chair. She's somebody who has a long history with the Democrat Party and with the Clintons. So the fact that she is now dumping dirt on Hillary Clinton, I think, goes beyond the resentment within the Democrat power circles of Hillary Clinton's bitter world whining tour, her bitter loser whining tour, where she is blaming everybody from Obama and Biden and Bernie Sanders and all these different people, blaming everyone inside the party and outside of the party for her loss. Everybody is to blame except for Hillary Clinton. And I think they've had enough of that, but I think they're also very concerned about her criminal exposure. If we ever get an attorney general who will do his job, or if Jeff Sessions happens to wake up, there's some people who could seriously go to jail if we were going to have an honest government anymore. You know, President Trump has tweeted out, he said, I'm very upset about this, but I can't do anything because I can't direct the attorney general as to what to do. Well, you know what? You can fire him. You can fire him. You can get somebody else in there if he's not going to do the job. You can talk to him and tell him to resign. They go on to say that what she found was an agreement that was signed by the former CEO of DNC and with Robbie Mook, and a copy to the lawyer who had hired the dirty dossier, Mark Elias, that specified in exchange for raising money and investing in the DNC, Hillary would control the party's finances, the strategy, and the money that they raised. Her campaign had the right of refusal of who would be the party communications director, and it would make the final decisions on all other staff. Okay, so understand that how this happened was the fact that Obama left the party bankrupt, highly in debt. And Hillary came in as a white knight because she got all this. She's flush with cash from all of her criminal dealings, all of her influence for cash that she's traded as Secretary of State, and the long legacy of Bill and Hillary Clinton. So she's pretty wealthy. And she comes in and says, I'll bail out the Democrat Party with all this cash that I've accumulated with my criminal dealings, but I will control the Democrat Party. And so that's the most interesting bit of dirt that comes out of her book. But I think the most fascinating thing about it is that these people are distancing themselves from Hillary. They don't want to go to prison with her, just in case the Department of Justice decides that they'll start enforcing the law. Stay with us. We'll be right back. I'm David Knight. Welcome back. I'm David Knight, and we're going to play the astonished clips of Wolf Blitzer and others. And Elizabeth Warren is now jumping into this and throwing Hillary Clinton under the bus along with Donna Brazile. They're trying to distance themselves very far from her. And you know what, folks? Her political career is over, even if she doesn't go to prison as she deserves. So we're going to play those clips for you in just a moment. Before we do, real quickly, I want to remind you of what we have on sale at InfoWarsStore.com. It's what supports this program and everything that we do here. It's the products that we sell to help you with your health, and we have massive discounts on some of the most popular products here, and they're not going to last much longer. We've had Brain Force at 50% off. That is going to be ending pretty soon. We also still have, however, Winter Sun at 50% off. We have all Emmerich's Essentials. That's our line of household organic non-GMO products, 50% off. We have Caveman, 50% off. Super Male Vitality and Anthroplex. Super Male Vitality is 30% off. Anthroplex is 50% off. And right now you can get 10% off Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink with the code VITA10 at checkout. You know, President Trump says he's very frustrated because of all the things that are coming out about Hillary Clinton. I guess he's also frustrated. He hasn't really talked about the fact that Robert Mueller, as director of the FBI, was involved in the cover-up of what they had found out about the criminal dealings of the corporation that Hillary Clinton and the rest of the Obama administration was pushing to turn over to a Russian source. That was being done 15 months before the sale went through. The Oversight Committee did not do their job. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton received millions of dollars as that sale went through. As I pointed out yesterday, we now learn that as the Obama administration was assuring us that they would not be exporting any uranium, it turns out that they did. And surprise, surprise, when they exported the uranium, they did it in a way that violated the law, and they covered it up. They kept it secret from Congress. They kept it secret from the public. They didn't get an export license. They didn't even bother to apply for one. Instead, they just added the name of a company to the trucking shipping list, sent it to Canada without letting anybody know so that nobody would see. They did it very quietly under the radar. And then it went from there to Europe. And from Europe, we don't know where it went. Yeah. That's the way these guys operate. Everything about it is criminal. And so President Trump says, he says he's very frustrated. This was in a radio interview he had. He said, it's the saddest thing because I'm the president of the United States, and I'm not supposed to be involved with the Justice Department. I'm not supposed to be involved with the FBI. Why aren't they going after Hillary Clinton with her emails and the dossier and that kind of money? Now, maybe they are, but as president, and I think you understand this, as a president, you're not supposed to be involved in that process. And he tweeted out, he said, Donna Brazile just stated the DNC rigged the system to illegally steal the primary from Bernie Sanders. Bought and paid for by crooked Hillary. This is real collusion and dishonesty. Major violation of campaign finance laws and money laundering. Where is our Justice Department? Now, as they point out in this Daily Caller article, I'm not sure either what campaign law this is specifically breaking when Hillary Clinton comes in with millions of dollars that she got with colluding to hide the crimes of the people who were buying Uranium One. She's flush with cash with all these criminal dealings, and she comes in to bail them out. And here's the amount of money that was in there. This is from her op-ed piece in Politico. She said, the Saturday morning after the convention in July 1st, she said, I called the chief financial officer of Hillary's campaign, and he told me that the Democrat Party was broke and $2 million in debt. What? I screamed. I am officer of the party, and they've been telling us everything is fine, and they were raising money with no problems. Kind of sounds like the way that they managed the country, isn't it? She said officials from Hillary's campaign had taken a look at the DNC's books. Obama had left the party $24 million in debt. Oh, kind of like he left the country $20 trillion in debt? Obama's campaign was not scheduled to pay it off until 2016. Hillary for America and the Hillary Victory Fund had taken care of 80% of the remaining debt in 2016, about $10 million, and they had placed the party on an allowance. So she does a leverage buyout of the Democrat Party with money that she stole with their collusion and criminal influence peddling. This is the Clintons. This is the way these guys act. So that was an interesting revelation that came out. But as the New York Post put it, her account is ridiculous and unbelievable melodramatics for the most part. She says she gasped when she found out the truth. She said she lit a candle in her living room, and she put on some gospel music to calm her before she called Bernie Sanders to deliver the awful news. But they say, as silly as her prose is, it does reveal an essential truth. And that is how Hillary Clinton used her tens of millions of dollars that she had obtained with influence peddling to do a leveraged buyout of the DNC. But let's take a look at the reaction of Elizabeth Warren, because they finally got her to admit what was going on as well. Here's Elizabeth Warren.
This is a real problem. But what we've got to do as Democrats now is we've got to hold this party accountable. This is a test for Tom Perez. And either he's going to succeed by bringing Bernie Sanders and Bernie Sanders representatives into this process, and they're going to say it's fair, it works, we all believe it, or he's going to fail. And I very much hope he succeeds. I hope for Democrats everywhere. I hope for Bernie and for all of Bernie's supporters that he's going to succeed.
Very quickly, Senator, do you agree with the notion that it was rigged?
Yes.
Yes. Now they're saying it. They wouldn't say that when I was at the DNC nominating convention in July. All the people that they were having protests, all the people who have been Bernie supporters, they were out there saying this is rigged. It was an open secret. And you could not get anybody who was supporting Hillary to give you a direct answer. All they would do was talk about the Russians. That was their diversionary tactic. Now, Bernie has chimed in and said DNC corruption is bigger than the primary. Well, that's true. He said her actions and the campaign's actions, Bernie Sanders, not just Donald Trump, but Bernie Sanders said her actions were essentially money laundering. And if you take a look at how she got that money, if the Justice Department would do its job, if the FBI would do its job, except that the FBI was her partner in crime under Robert Mueller. So Robert Mueller gets to do the investigation, of course, and he gets to run the paper shredders so that we don't really see what was going on, what he was doing with Hillary Clinton. That's the real scandal that's here. But, when we look at the amount of debt that the DNC was in, and who knew, they were just absolutely amazed because, the Democrats would never do that in real life. And we're going to talk later about the tax reform package. The key thing that they're using in tax reform, they're coming out, they're running ads talking about the deficit now. Now the Democrats are concerned about the deficit. After Obama was running it up $1 trillion a year, now they're concerned about it because they want to have something that they can talk about that is going to shut down tax reform. They don't want any kind of tax reform. But let's take a look at what Wolf Blitzer said and how shocked he is about this. And remember, it was Donna Brazile, who was working at CNN, who was funneling questions to Hillary Clinton, colluding with her at the same time. But here's Wolf Blitzer in his astonishment as to what was going on.
Congressman, while I have you, get to another topic. Very sort of shocking revelation from the former Democratic National Committee interim chair, Donna Brazile, who now says the Clinton campaign actually reached a formal deal before Donna Brazile arrived at the DNC to control the DNC long before Hillary Clinton was officially the nominee. She says this in a new book that is just coming out. In exchange for raising money and investing in the DNC, Hillary would control the party's finances, strategy, and all the money raised. That deal was signed in August of 2015, a year before Hillary Clinton actually won the party's presidential nomination. What's your reaction to this?
I haven't read the book yet. I look forward to reading the book. I
nice
know Donna
deflection.
Brazile. I think she's a brilliant thinker, and she's a former Hill staffer. And I'm always excited to hear what she has to say.
So this guy hasn't been cut in on this. He doesn't realize.
The Democratic National Committee not supposed to take sides in a contest for the presidential nomination. Bernie Sanders, presumably, he's reading all of this. His supporters are reading all of this. They're pretty upset to see there was this formal arrangement that was worked out between the Hillary Clinton campaign a year before she got the nomination and the DNC. You're a Democrat. You want to elaborate a little bit on this latest information we're now getting for Donna Brazile?
Well, I wasn't privy to any kind of deal. We were focused in Indiana, statewide, and even in the 7th District in terms of getting the vote out, making sure voters were engaged, making sure our constituents saw us.
Okay, let's stop because he's just going to talk boilerplate talking points of a politician. The bottom line is that nobody has clued him in on the fact that the Democrat establishment has basically dumped Hillary, and it's safe to say that. Donna Brazile has dumped her. Bernie Sanders has dumped her. Elizabeth Warren has dumped her. It's okay. You don't have to say, well, I know nothing. I haven't read the book. Don't worry. You don't need to read the book. We told you about this a year ago. And, of course, this was in works for a year that they were pushing this just like she was working on the Uranium One thing for a year. Stay with us. We'll be right back. I'm David Knight.